We have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti podcast. The great painters, great musicians, and great architects have extraordinary capacities and talent. But in their daily life, they are like you and me, and like everybody else. Hello and welcome to episode 264 of Urgency of Change. Each episode of the Krishnamurti podcast is based on a significant theme of his talks. Extracts from the archives have been selected to represent Krishnamurti's different approaches to these universal and timelessly relevant topics. This week's theme is talent and skill. Upcoming themes are artificial intelligence and existence. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust based at Brockwood Park in the UK, which is also home to the Krishnamurti Centre. The centre offers a variety of group retreats, including for young adults. There is also a volunteer programme. The atmosphere at the centre is one of openness and friendliness, with a sense of freedom to inquire with others and alone. Please visit krishnamurticentre.org.uk for more information. You can also find our regular Krishnamurti quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app. This episode on talent and skill has 5 sections. This first extract is from a question and answer meeting at Rajghat in 1964 and is titled Talent and Fulfilment.
I must find out first why I want to fulfill, and if there is such thing as fulfillment. So why do I want to fulfill? First, education. Society says you must be somebody. Society says through education, through religion, through all the social divisions, that you must be a success. Success being a rich man, car, big house, fame, notoriety, whatever it is, you must be somebody. I have been nourished, I have been brought up in that society. All society says that you must be somebody, except a certain tribe in America among the Red Indians, which said you must never be ambitious. And if anybody who was ambitious, he was murdered, he was killed. Only a certain tribe, a certain group of people that where anybody, any human being showed any sense of ambition, wanting to be superior to another, he was killed. We won't go to that extreme because we have to all kill each other. So, is there such thing as fulfilling? I know we have been brought up on it. And we see what is involved. In it is involved cunning, brutality, ruthlessness, competition, and a sense of violent, self-assertive, aggressive drive, in which everybody deals, goes in, whether you do it on a small scale or large scale, it's the same thing. the element of this aggressive, brutal, self-centered activity goes on. And to cover that up, we talk about brotherhood, love, and religion, and social improvement, and play all around that. But actually this is going on. Now, I want to fulfill also, one wants to fulfill also, because one has a talent. You have a talent to write, to paint, to really govern. A talent for putting things in order, or a talent for scientific research, a talent to work in the laboratory, and so on and so on. So if that talent or that gift is not given a full play, you feel frustrated. Again, there is this sense of being impeded, restrained. So you become jealous, angry, furious, annoyed, and feel, I have something to give and they won't let me. And also, there is the sense of this desire, this urge to do something great, spectacular, do a final noble deed which everybody recognizes, of course. And you, out of that final action, there is redemption. So we have all these complicated motives when we want to fulfill. And also we want to fulfill all more deeply, psychologically, because we in ourselves are nothing. One discovers that. I am nothing. And if I could be somebody in the world, inwardly also I'll be something. So that is also involved in this urge to fulfill. And also, if you observe more, you will see that is one is terribly lonely. Lonely. You know what it means to be lonely? Not alone. I don't mean alone, which is something quite a different thing. But being lonely. You know, that you must have felt it when you're walking in the street or sitting in a bus or sitting in your family next to your wife or children. Suddenly you feel that you're completely cut off from everything. That you have no relationship with anything. That in yourself there is no depth to this extraordinary sense of isolation. You must have felt this. To be completely lonely. Though you'll go to the office, a sense of deep void, empty. These are words. A sense of isolation is the right word. Sense of being cut off from everything. And most of us have this feeling, if one goes into it. And to escape from that feeling, we try to fulfill, we try to do this and that, 10 different things. And unless one solves that feeling of isolation, fulfillment must breed frustration and therefore greater sorrow. I hope we are following each other. So being isolated, and we are isolating ourselves through all activity. If you observe, family, within the family, the me who is separate from my wife and my children, the me that is ambitious, greedy, envy, and the me that is struggling to be somebody. Again, so every activity is self-isolating. Even though I do social reform, it is still an isolating process. My way of social reform, with which I have identified. I who feel frustrated with my family, with society, with this, also because I'm terribly lonely, which I'm not conscious. So, this self-centered activity, whether it is identified with a noble cause or ignoble or stupid cause, is still isolating process. I hope, did I explain that? Oh. So, this sense of frustration arises when this isolating process is not understood, does not come to an end. And to understand from this isolating process, one can't escape from it. Through religion, through activity, through social reforms, one can't escape from it. I have this isolating process. Suppose one has this isolating process. Then one joins a party, political party or a religious group. One identifies oneself with that group, thinking that will do something, that I will forget myself. But as I've identified myself with that group, the self-isolating process still goes on, though it is with that group. That group becomes the isolating process with which I am identified. So again, that group must fulfill. Therefore, that group is important. That group has the real truth. This is the only method, the only economic way, and the whole process begins. So, this self-isolating activity which breeds isolation has to be understood. It is that is forcing me to fulfill and breeding all kinds of difficulties, sorrows, brutalities. So, to understand this isolating process, I must be conscious of it. I must be aware of it, which is I must look at it. I must look at it without any condemnation. Not use the word bad. I must understand it. And to understand it, I must go into the question of the word and the feeling. Whether the word creates the feeling, or the feeling is independent of the word, or is there an intimate relationship between the word and the feeling? It isn't just a simple explanation. One has to go into this so profoundly that one begins to understand. And as you begin to understand, then there is as you understand, then there is no fulfillment at all. You have a gift and you give it. It is not I am giving the gift. It is not I who have certain talent and be fulfilling myself through that talent. It's like a violinist who uses his instrument to become famous. It is the instrument, because he has certain talent, or paint, or whatever it is, acting. It is the instrument that makes him famous. In himself, he is nobody. But the instrument for which he has a talent, the instrument makes him great. And remove the instrument and he's lost. He feels frustrated, angry, anxious. Don't you know all this? So you cannot destroy the world which is built on ambition, greed, and envy, and thereby brings about its own frustration. One has to understand the deep meaning of this word and go into it and learn about it.
The second extract is from the 5th question and answer meeting in Saanen 1980 and is titled, "Why Are We Mediocre Despite Our Talents?"
Why is it that almost all human beings, apart from their talents and capacities, are mediocre? I know I'm mediocre, and I don't seem to be able to break through this mediocrity. First of all, are we aware that we're mediocre? So you answer it for yourself. Mediocre means neither high nor low, just hovering in between. The great painters, the great musicians, the great architects, they've got extraordinary capacities and talents. But in their daily life, they're like you and me and like everybody else. Like Haydn, when he composed, he put on his best clothes. And when we go to church, we put on the best clothes. You understand what I'm saying? So, was it Haydn? Doesn't matter so much. If I am aware that I'm mediocre, just go into it slowly with me, please. Let's share it. If I am aware I'm mediocre, what does that mean? I'm neither hot nor cold, right? Neither passionate, I may be lustful. And I cool off. I may have great talent, writer, painter, sculptor, musician, teacher. Those are all outward dress, outward show of inward poverty. Being poor inwardly, we're always struggling to become rich. Not financially, but in knowledge, in understanding, in striving to something nobler. This sense of insufficiency and trying to fill that insufficiency with the latest gossip about politics, with the latest rituals, latest meditation, latest this and that. All that is an act of mediocrity. Right? Please don't get angry with me. We're just sharing it, pointing out to each other. And this sense of mediocrity, if one is aware of it, shows itself in outward respectability. Right? Or the revolt against the mediocrity. The hippies, the long hair, the unshaved, the latest fallouts. It is the same movement, you understand? I can join a community, a commune. Because inwardly, there's nothing in me, and by joining, I become important. There's something, there's action. So when one is aware of this mediocrity, which is this utter sense of insufficiency, this sense of deep, frustrating loneliness, which is covered over by all kinds of activities. If you are aware of that, then what is insufficiency? You understand my question? What is loneliness? How do you measure this insufficiency? The moment you measure, you are insufficient. I wonder if you capture it. Huh? Do you see that? Right? No, don't agree, but don't measure. See, like depression is measurement. Don't reduce everything to measurement. That's another catchword. We're good at catching words and repeating it and worthless. It becomes worthless. But we are saying this insufficiency comes into being as long as there is comparison. Right? And this measurement is limitless. Then go on measuring, but not limitless. Sorry, I've used that word. It is a constant movement from a human being who is insufficient in himself. Now, can that comparative observation end? Then is there insufficiency? You're following what I'm saying? No, come on, sirs. I compare myself with you, and I realize that you're much cleverer than I am. Much more intelligent, nice looking, alive, full of this and that. I compare myself. And then I say to myself, how dull I am in comparison. So I strive to compete with you. But if I don't compare with you who are very clever, the very clever is already comparison. I don't know if you follow. If I don't compare, am I dull? Or am I aware of what is actually taking place in me? When I compare, I'm avoiding the fact of what is. Is this too much of a thing for a morning? Perhaps for some of you it is. So, this mediocrity that all of us seem to have can be broken through when there is no sense of comparison measurement. You understand? It gives you an immense freedom. Where there is freedom, there is no mediocrity. Right? Do see it, sirs. where there's complete psychological freedom, there's no sense of mediocrity. You follow? You're out of that class altogether. Not you, something totally different state of mind exists.
The third extract is from the third question and answer meeting in Ojai 1980 and is titled Talent and Creativity.
What is true creativity? And how is it different from that which is celebrated in popular culture? What is generally called creativity is mostly man-made. Painting, music, literature, both romantic and factual, all the architecture, the marvelous technology, and all those who are involved in all this, the painters, the writers, the poets, the philosophical writers, probably consider themselves as creative. And we all seem to agree with them. That's the popular idea of what is a creative person. We agree to that? I think we all see that. That all man-made things, most beautiful, the great cathedrals, temples, and Islamic mosques are extraordinary, some of them are extraordinarily beautiful. I don't know if you have seen them, and if you have, they are really marvelous. And the people who built these were anonymous. We don't know who built them. They were only concerned with building, writing, the Bible, all that. Nobody knows who wrote them. But now, with us, anonymity is almost gone. And perhaps with anonymity, there's a different kind of creativity. It's not based on success, money, and 28 million books sold in 10 years, and so on and so on. The speaker himself, at one time, tried anonymity. Because speaker doesn't like all this fuss and nonsense. He tried to talk behind a curtain. And it became rather absurd. So anonymity has great importance. In that there is a different quality, different, this personal motive doesn't exist. The personal attitudes and personal opinions, it is a feeling of freedom from which you are acting. But most creativity, as we call it, is man-made. That is, this creation takes from the known. Right? The known. The great musicians, Beethoven, Bach, and so on. It is from the known they act. And the writers, philosophers, and so on also have read, accumulated, developed their own style and so on, always moving or acting or writing from that which has been accumulated known. And this we call generally creativity. Now, is that really creative? Please, let's talk about it. Or is there a different kind of creativity which is born out of the freedom from the known? You understand me? Because when we paint, write, create a marvelous structure out of stone, it is the accumulated knowledge, whether in the scientific field or in the world of art, human art, there is always this sense of carrying from the past to the present, or sudden or imagination, romantic, factual, modern, and so on. Is their creativity something totally different from this activity that we call generally creativity? We're asking, I think it's a rather important question to go into, if you are willing, whether there is an action, there is a living, there is a movement which is not from the known. That is there a creation from a mind that is not burdened from all the turmoils of life, from all the social pressures, economic and so on. Is there a creation out of a mind that has freed itself from the known? And it can then use memory. You understand what I mean? Knowledge. But we start with knowledge, and that we call creative. But we are suggesting that there is a creativity which is not born out of the known. When that creative impulse or movement takes place, it can then use the known, but not the other way around. I don't know if you're following what I'm saying. You, if you don't mind some time, try or be in a... Find out whether the mind can ever be free from the known. The known being all the accumulated experience, remembrance, the knowledge that one has acquired, the impressions and so on. Whether the mind can be free from all that. And in that very state of mind, creation as we know it may not be necessary. You understand? A man who has a talent for writing feels he must express himself. He develops his own style. The way he writes, Keats, Eliot, and so on, and the others, they have this impulse to write, fulfill, create. Perhaps their own lives are rather not all that beautiful. And Michelangelo, Raffaello, and all those people. Sorry to quote these names. I'm not learned, but I've visited many museums when I was young. I was pushed into it, all that. And the remnants of all that remains. And I have talked to a great many artists, writers, friends, and so on. It seems to that all our creation in this scientific world, in all human art, it is always from a point, from a talent, from a gift. And that gift is exploited to its fullest extent. Like a musician who has a gift, a prodigy. He, becomes tremendously important. And we, common people, admire all that and wish we had some of that. As we haven't got it, we run after them. We almost worship them. The conductors, the game that goes on. And when you begin to question what is creativity, as the questioner is asking, is it something totally different, which I think we all can have? Not the specialists, not the professionals, not the talented, gifted. I think we can all have this extraordinary mind that is really free from all the burden which man has imposed upon himself, created for himself. And then out of that sane, rational, healthy life, something totally different comes. And that may be not necessarily be expressed as in painting, architecture. What should one? You follow? If you are gone into this fairly deeply, and I hope you will find out that there is a state of mind which actually has no experience whatsoever. Because experience implies a mind that is still groping, asking, seeking, and therefore struggling in darkness and wanting to go beyond it. But a mind that is very clear, not confused, has no conflict, has no problem, has no problem. Such a mind, it's no need to express talk, or I'm talking, sorry. The speaker is talking not because he wants to impress you or anything of that kind, which is too silly, or persuade you to certain attitudes and opinions and judgments. It's a kind of friendly communication with two people who are concerned with all this enormous, complex life, who haven't found a complete, total answer to all this. And there is a complete and total answer if we apply our minds, our hearts to this. So there is a creativity which is not man-made. Don't please say that's God-made. That has no meaning either. Because if our own minds are extraordinarily clear, without a shadow of conflict, then out of that mind is really in a state of creation which needs no expression, no fulfillment, or all that publicity and nonsense.
The fourth extract is from Krishnamurti's third talk in Saanen 1977 and is titled Skill in Action.
We've been talking about security. Security in the things of the mind, of thought, of the things thought has created, the security in authority. And also, I would like to go into this question of finding safety, comfort, security in skill. Skill in action. Please listen to it, because a great deal is involved in this. When one has a skill in action, it gives certain sense of well-being, security. And that skill, born of knowledge, must invariably, in its action, become mechanical. Right? I hope we are sharing this together. Skill in action is what man has sought, because it gives him certain position in society, certain prestige and power. Power to go to the moon, live under the sea, and so on. Skill. Skill which is born of accumulated technological knowledge. And if one lives in that field all the time, as one does in modern society, with all its economic demands, that knowledge becomes not only additive, you add more to that knowledge, but also invariably it becomes a repetitive, mechanical process which gradually gathers its own stimulation, its own activity, its own arrogance and power. In that power, one seeks a great deal of security. One has security. I do not know, this must be obvious to all of us. And the world at the present time is demanding more and more skill. You are an engineer, technological expert, a scientist, a psychotherapist, etc., etc., etc. But there is great danger, is there not, in seeking this absolute skill. That skill is born out of accumulated knowledge. But in that skill there is no clarity. Please listen, I'm going to investigate something totally new this morning. And I hope you will have the kindness and the seriousness to listen, not agreeing or disagreeing, but thinking over together. Thinking together, logically, sanely, rationally, and with certain sense of humility. When skill becomes all important in life, because that's a means of livelihood, and when one is totally educated for that purpose, all our universities, colleges and schools are directed for that purpose. And that skill invariably breeds a certain sense of power, arrogance, and self-importance. Right? What is the relationship of skill to clarity? And what is the relationship of clarity to compassion? These are the three things which we are going to discuss. As we talked about very often, the art of listening, the art of seeing, the art of learning. The art of listening is to listen so that naturally everything is put in its right place. The meaning of that word art means that. To put where things belong. And art of seeing is to observe without any distortion. Obviously. If there is any distortion, there is no observation. If you mistake a bird for a snake, then you can't see clearly. In the same way, to see clearly, to have great clarity in perception, there must be no distortion. Distortion brought about by any form of motive, purpose, a direction. Right? Now we go on. We are meeting each other, thinking together. And the art of learning is not only the acquisition of knowledge, which is necessary for skillful action, but also there is learning without accumulation. Right? This is a little more difficult. To learn, there are two types of learning. Acquiring and gathering through experience, through books, through education, a great deal of knowledge. And that knowledge is used skillfully. That's one form of learning. There is the other form, which is never to accumulate, which means, please listen to this, which means never to register anything but which is absolutely necessary. Right? Are we meeting each other? That is, when you learn any form of knowledge, the brain is registering, accumulating knowledge, storing it up, and acting from that storage of knowledge, skillfully or unskillfully. But there is another form of learning, which is to become so totally aware that you only register what is absolutely necessary and nothing else. Do you understand this? So that the mind is not cluttered up all the time with knowledge, movement. I wonder if you're following all this. We'll go into this. So there are these three essential things in the awakening of intelligence, which is the art of listening to communicate not only verbally but non-verbally exactly what you mean, and you listen without distortion. That is the art of learning. The art of seeing is to observe clearly without a direction, without motive, without any form of desire, but to merely to observe. Right? And then there is the art of learning, accumulating knowledge, and which means registering all the things that are necessary for skillful action, and non-registering any psychological responses, any psychological reactions, so that the brain is employing itself where function, skill are necessary to knowledge, and the brain is free not to register. Right? I wonder if you understand this. It's very arduous, this, to be so totally aware, so that you only register what is necessary and not absolutely not register anything which is not necessary. Someone insults you, someone flatters you, someone calls you this or that, no registration. Right? This gives tremendous clarity. Right? Not only with regard to skill, which is the outcome of knowledge. Why am I getting so? It's very exciting. You don't know what it means. I was thinking about it yesterday. I wanted to talk about it day before yesterday, but it slipped. To register and not to register. So there is no psychological building up of the me, the structure of the self. The structure of the self arises only when there is registration of everything that is not necessary. That is, giving importance to the name, to one's name, form, one's experience, one's opinions, conclusions, all that is the gathering up of the energy of the self, which is always distorting. Right? Right? Shall go on? I mean, please, I can go on. But you must keep together with me. We're taking the journey together. I'm not walking ahead of you or walking behind you. We're all moving together. So, where there is the art of learning, where there is putting everything in its right place. Therefore, to listen without any conclusion, without any opinion, which are all distorting factors. And in that listening, one discovers the false and the true. Without any effort, because when there is actual attention given to listening, that very attention excludes everything that's not absolute factual. Right? And in the art of seeing, when one observes with one's conclusions, opinions, dogmas, beliefs, you cannot possibly see very clearly, obviously. And the art of learning to accumulate knowledge, to act in life skillfully. But any other form of registering distorts, gives importance to skill, and therefore it becomes mechanical. I hope you understand this, right? You see this? So, the art of listening, the art of seeing, the art of learning gives extraordinary clarity. And therefore, that clarity can communicate verbally, right? So there is the skill in action. If there is no clarity, it breeds self-importance. Whether that self-importance is identified with a group, with oneself, or with a nation. And that self-importance denies clarity, naturally. So, skill, clarity, and compassion. You cannot have clarity without compassion. And because we have no compassion, skill has become more important. Right? May I take a rest bit? It is very important to understand this. Because when you listen to all this seriously, with attention, and therefore sharing together in our thinking, logically and so on, when you have this compassion, clarity and skill, then you become the teacher. Because then you have the teaching. Not mine or in the teaching. And so it becomes extraordinarily important for a person who listens.
The final extract in this episode is from the fourth discussion in Saanen 1977 and is titled Skill and the Art of Living.
If one has gone into this, as we have gone very closely, very hesitantly into what is reality, and in seeing what is reality, the mind, there is a sharpening of not only the intellect, not only your sensitivity, out of that comes a quality of intelligence which is not of thought. Right? If you have done it, then that intelligence is love. Then action is dictated by that intelligence. Wherever we are, you may become it may say you become a gardener or this or that. That intelligence is love, and therefore that intelligence acts. Then we can go on much further, if you want to, into it, because is intelligence, this intelligence, not the intelligence of cunning, verbal disputations, dialectical opinions, and so on, but a mind that has put everything in its right place. The building, the illusion, the fear, you follow everything, therefore, the very through observation and putting everything in there is intelligence. We are saying that is the new moment of action. Now, what is the relationship? I better not enter into that. You'll all, that'll be theory, won't it? I would like to ask, what is the relationship of intelligence to compassion, to clarity and skill? You understand? We said skill by itself has no meaning. It has a meaning that makes one more and more selfish, more and more egotistical, and limited. It becomes egotistic, limited, because there is no clarity. And clarity comes with compassion. Right? So, the daily life, in our daily life, everyday life, not some life for a few weeks at Saanen, but when you go back home, every day of your life, can this operate, move? That is compassion, clarity and skill. Because you must have skill in life. Skill may be with one's hand, skill may be in intellectual skill, skill may be communication, verbal communication, but when that is without the other two, it becomes what we have made the world into: cunning, deceptive, hypocrisy, using skill to achieve a status. And the moment you have status, you become very proud, privileged, all the rest of it. So where there is compassion, clarity, and skill, there is no vanity, no hypocrisy, no contradiction. You see, I like to go into something much deeper, which is, what is the relationship when there is this total action to meditation, which is the complete emptying of all the content of one's consciousness, which we have talked about, then what is the relationship of that to total silence, emptiness? You understand, sir? So one is afraid to use the word emptiness because we think emptiness, my God, that's nothing. After all, I've worked and lived and I end up in emptiness. You follow? But when you have put everything in its right place, which is the art of living, right? The art of living is to give everything in its proper place. That's the art of living, which is the greatest skill. And out of that orderly life, one has this intelligence, which is love. And with love goes compassion and clarity and skill. Now, what is the relationship of intelligence to that which is the outcome, a natural outcome without effort, of total emptying of the mind of its content? Which is real meditation, you understand? We talked about it sufficiently. What is the relationship of intelligence to silence? You understand? When there is right kind of meditation, silence must be the central issue. Not central core of meditation is the total emptying of all the fears and all so on. So the consciousness has, as we know it, is gone, doesn't exist. And what is the relationship of this intelligence to this total silence of emptiness? You understand? No, I won't go into it. One can go into it if you have gone that far. You understand? Not verbally, but actually in daily life. Then it's fun to explore